Good morning, my name is Chris Fox, and welcome to what is probably going to be the last video recorded using this camera. This is the cheap Logitech I've had the entire time for this channel, and I am finally upgrading to a much nicer camera. So next week you should see a lot more clarity, I hope, in the videos. Anyway, on to the actual video. We are talking about covers. Now, specifically, what do you do when your cover's not good enough and you've got a pre-order? So you've got a book coming out on a specific date, and you're looking at your cover, and you're like, you know what? This is not good enough. And this is a position I found myself in a couple of times over the years. The very first time was when I put out the novel Destroyer, which is a phenomenal piece of artwork if you look on Amazon today. But unfortunately, the first piece of artwork I commissioned for it was not phenomenal and did not satisfy the things that it needed to satisfy. And so I ended up using that on the reader magnet Exiled. But basically the problem is that as a thumbnail, it looked like it was a fish and not a spaceship. And that is a huge, huge problem when you're trying to sell in the genre, at the time that I was, military science fiction. You know, it's really critical that readers can see something they recognize on your cover. They need a symbol they know, like, you know, Marines fighting against something, or aliens, or kaiju, or mechs, or Star Destroyers, or something that they recognize and can kind of hook into. You know, a new spaceship, you know, a bunch of nanites swarming over something. I mean, you can, you know, the sky's the limit. You can pick your symbol. But that symbol needs to be legible in the thumbnail. And back in 2016, I couldn't articulate that as well, but I understood that if I couldn't make that cover really, really hit the reader in the right ways, I wasn't going to sell books. And so ever since then, I've been experimenting. Well, some of my covers are amazing. If you look at TechMage, I would say that's my best engineered cover. If you go on Amazon and you look at my covers, TechMage is definitely the most engineered of them, where I looked at this and I said, these are the elements I need to have. I'm going to have all of them present in the right size and shape and location. And I really engineered that cover, and it was tremendously successful. It's still, to date, the only book that I've had break into the top 100 books of all of Amazon, in an Amazon best-selling series. So that cover was a huge part of the success. But at the opposite end of the spectrum, I have covers that are not so great, and you really see a difference in sales. Even if you have a large fan base like I'm fortunate enough to have, outside of your fans, new people want to see a good cover, and if they don't, they're not going to commit to it. So in the second half of this video, I'll show you the specific images we're talking about, you know, the what happened and how it all played out. But the short version is this. My son was supposed to be born on January 15th. My son arrived on December 30th. And the last 2 weeks, I had some very specific stuff I had to get done for a pre-order. So the Dying World pre-order was coming out, and I knew that I needed, you know, to get the cover ready, and that I needed to, you know, tune the blurb. And through like a comedy of errors and a perfect storm, like everything went wrong. So the initial cover art that I received for the cover was insufficient. It was not going to do what I needed it to do. I'll show you in the next section. You can actually look at it. And while it's a good piece of artwork, it's not good for a book cover. So I had to scramble, and I went through my library of existing images, and I found the best one that I could. And it's okay. It's not amazing, but it's okay. You know, it works, and it's sold some copies. But I can see the difference, where I understand that if I had a better cover on the book, my sales would be just an order of magnitude better. And now I get to test that. So you'll see what the new cover is that's replacing it, and hopefully it should fix all the problems that I was running into on the previous version. And I really feel like it probably will. So I'm excited to do that kind of testing. Now, normally, all this testing would have happened in the pre-order period, like the 2 weeks leading up to it. So I'll run like $5 to $15 a day in ads, and I'll test various ad copy, and I may upload a new cover every day for like weeks and just keep trying to test stuff out. And that's the sort of thing that I do. And I'm always changing the blurb, and I'm trying to condense. And unfortunately, by the time the book went live, I had done none of that. It was the initial marketing copy, and it wasn't in any way polished. The first 3 sentences, I think, said basically the same thing. I mean, if you look at it today, it's much, much better, and I've done that tuning and that polishing. But I really got to see what happens when you hamstring your own launch because you are not putting everything the way it needs to be. So in the next section of the video, which we're going to jump into in a moment, I will show you what images we're talking about and how this cover came together. But again, it was the perfect storm. You know, my son being born definitely threw a wrench in the works, and now I get to make this video to show a lesson that I got to, relearn, which is that you can't play around with your cover. What's different this time is when I put out the cover, I knew exactly how it would go and how it would influence sales. I knew. I looked at it. I'm like, this is how this is going to go. There is no object in focus on this cover. This is not going to sell the books that I want it to sell. You know, I knew it was, in my opinion, pretty cringe of a cover. But I was in a position where what could I do? You know, there was nothing else I could get together by the pre-order release date that was better. So what I was forced to do is go with the best cover that I can. But this is the part where indies get to adapt. Because the beauty of working with Amazon is nothing's set in stone. Just because your book's released doesn't mean you can't change the cover or even the title, which, by the way, I've considered doing. The current title is Dying World. That's not the best title, and I know it. You know, it fits and it's okay. But I thought about changing it maybe to Relic Hunter, because the main character is a Relic Hunter. It's probably a better marketing angle for me to do so. I may just make book 2, you know, Relic Hunter. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. The point being, your title and your cover are malleable after that book goes live. You can make those changes. And sure, there's some rules around that in my own head, at least, where I got to make sure I notify readers, and I'll put like a note to the reader before they even get into the book that says, hey, listen, this was originally published as something else. I don't like changing titles, and I've never had to do it on my main pen name, so it'll be awkward if I have to. I prefer not to. Like, what do you tell your readers at that point that doesn't feel like a betrayal? But what I do have control over is the artwork. So at the very least, in that next segment of the video, you're going to see me change that. So let's jump in and we'll take a look. Okay, so this is the product page that is currently live to the world. You can see that this has been selling. It's doing pretty well. I don't even know what my rank is. Let's go take a look. Ouch! 3,700 in the store. It's definitely fallen quite a ways. I'm not terribly surprised about that. I'm not putting a ton of ad spend into this because, in my opinion, the cover being this bad is going to like, it's, my ad spend is going to leak like it's going through a sieve. Like, it's not going to be cost effective. So I'm not doing the amount of ad spend that I normally would. The other half of that equation is the audiobook is not live yet. So maybe because it's January and there was a big backlog, ACX has taken forever to get the book done. So I'm still waiting on that. So I haven't really turned on the big tap for ad spend yet. But normally, to give you some idea of where another book in a more popular series might be at this time, it would probably stabilize in the top 1,000. And this one is stabilizing like in the top 4,000. And a lot of that is the cover. You know, part of it's the title. There are other problems. But a lot of that is the cover. And it's because if you look at this thumbnail down here, hopefully you can see this in the video. It's super tiny. It's just kind of a blob. You're like, what is that? Well, you can't really tell. You might be able to tell we're looking at some asteroids, but it's not clear that there's a spaceship. There's no heavy contrast here. There's nothing to draw the eye, which means if you put this next to like 10 other covers, this one is going to be one of the forgettable ones that your eye slides over. And so I'm going to go to last things that you see and look at. And that is a serious problem. So that's the existing cover. Well, how did this cover come to be? Why did it make it live? This is the original cover art that I commissioned. And unfortunately, it just, oh, I'm sorry, this is low res, so I'm sure it looks terrible. Unfortunately, because of the motion blur, it does not make for a good cover. So what we're seeing here is the planet literally coming apart. I sent the artist a video showing what happens to a planet when it passes the Roche point and comes apart like this. And this is what he came up with, and I liked it. But it's way too busy. There's no way I could use this for a book cover. The moment I saw it, even though I liked the artwork, I knew this wasn't going to be sufficient. And so I said to myself, okay, self, this is not usable. You've basically got to use this as maybe concept art or art in the role-playing game, but it's not going to make it onto a cover. I went into my library, I found this one, and this will work in the interim, but it's still not good. So what do? Well, I needed to get something way, way better, and so this is what we've been waiting on. So this cover, as you can see, not only looks far, far better at a high resolution, but it has a lot more legs as a thumbnail. So let's take a look at this as a thumbnail. I'll pull up the full cover. Okay. And so this is with exactly the same typography, which we're probably not going to go with. We're going to change this again. For now, this will work, and you can already see how much better the thumbnail is. So let's get rid of the big artwork. And we're going to put this little thumbnail down here next to, you know, the super tiny image. You can see, we'll make it as small as we can, that if you compare the one with the armor with the one with the asteroids, it's just so much more crisp. You can clearly see that we're looking at a figure. It's obvious that we see a faceplate. You can see the heavy contrast of the hand fart. Yes, that's an official term. This cover is radically better. And ideally, I would like to get Dying World at the top of the cover and not on the bottom, so we're going to play around with the typography and put something better into play. But even just swapping the artwork is an immediate change, and I would hazard a guess that I'll probably see a change in rank. And, without even changing the ad spend, which, I'm still spending some money on it, you should start to see it jump a little bit in ranks because it's got that better cover. And then if I take it one step further and I get the really good topography, then we should see it really start to skyrocket, hopefully, in rank, or at least recover somewhat in rank, because it'll just be much more interesting to people. I mean, your cover really does matter just that much. It's so important to get the right cover. Let me see if I have the role-playing game cover handy so I can show you what that branding looks like. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so this is what the role-playing game cover looks like. I think you saw it probably in a previous email if you're on my list. You can see that at the top here, this gold color, and over here where it says role-playing game, that's what I'm looking to preserve. So if you can imagine Dying World at the top, and then down where it says role-playing game would be the name of the series, and then my name super tiny on the bottom. This sort of branding, we would like to preserve that. So I'm going to take a look to see if that ends up being the best. But I'm not afraid to test. And even though this novel's already been out for, when did we come out? The 21st? Even though it's already been out for a little while now, I don't really care that I'm still experimenting. I know that this is a quality product, and I can tell because of the ratings. If you look at the ratings, the one person who gave the book a 4-star had great things to say about it. It's the type of person who they reserve that 5th star for, like, transcendental works of art. But everybody else has said, wow, this is amazing. I'm onto something, and I can see that in the content. So it's really worth me taking the time to get the branding right. Eventually, I'm going to be releasing, the sequels. Those will come out pretty quickly. And that's going to keep pushing book 1 back up. So the fact that I've kind of blown my initial launch and not gotten the success I was after because that cover wasn't there, that's okay. I can keep playing with the blurb. I can keep playing with the ad spend. I can keep playing with the cover until I get it where I want it to be. And then, of course, release the sequels. So a lot of what I wanted to do with this video is disabuse people of the notion that your launch is critical. In a perfect world, you want an awesome launch, and obviously you want to sell as many copies as possible. But if you blow a launch or you flub it, it is fixable, but we have to be willing to suck it up and admit to ourselves that things need to be fixed. I can't say to myself, okay, I spent X amount of dollars on this cover, it's good enough, I should stick with it. I have to be cognizant enough of readers to say, no, this is not good enough, it's not going to work, and even if it costs me a whole bunch of extra money, I'm going to have to change this and get the cover where I need it to be. If you contrast it with, say, TechMage, so this is still my most successful cover, look at how crisp everything else in this cover and what you can tell just by looking at it. You can see so many little details, from the dragon to the planetary horizon, to the spell armor itself. It's vital that we get these things right, and hopefully I've now made the necessary corrections for Dying World to recover. I'll keep you guys posted. I'm not doing nearly as much marketing stuff because I don't want to focus on, how do I make ads, but I do want to focus on, if you get your cover right, if you get your description right, if you get your marketing correct, if you have a quality product and your first 5 or 10,000 words is really good, then you can really turn up the ad spend. And until you're positive all of that is where it needs to be, you should wait. And in my case, I've got a low level of ad spend, and I'll continue to have a low level of ad spend until I'm confident that Dying World has legs. When it's doing what I think it should do, when I see the rank start to improve because that new cover is great and then the audiobook drops, that's when I'll turn on the faucet for ad spend, and it should start being more successful. And of course, the sequel will come out in the series as well. I've also got the complete Magitech Chronicles series, which is the first series in this universe, going on sale in a couple weeks here. So, ideally by that point, all of this stuff is solved. It hasn't cost me tremendously that I blew the launch, but being able to admit that I blew the launch and it wasn't what I wanted it to be, that's important as a business owner. You have to be able to do that rigorous, critical self-assessment. So anyway, guys, I have rambled on long enough. I am quite sleep deprived, not as sleep deprived as my wife, but very tired, and I have a lot of work to get done. The writing is going well, but way slower than I would like because I have so much management and, of course, parental duties. So I will keep you guys posted. But anyway, I'm going to get back to the writing, and I will see you guys in the near future.